In the city of Charlotte, North Carolina, siblings Jackson, Amanda, Lucas, and Emma lived in a small apartment with their parents, Martin and Grace Collins. Although life was simple and money was scarce, there was a sense of unity between them. Martin, however, was a man frustrated by financial difficulties. He worked in a warehouse during the day and did odd jobs at night, but he never seemed satisfied. Grace, on the other hand, did her best to keep the home welcoming and take care of the children, all of whom ranged in age from 6 to 12. Everything changed drastically one winter night. After an intense argument between Martin and Grace, the father announced that he could no longer take this life. "I need a fresh start," he said, before grabbing some clothes and walking out the door without looking back. The brothers were silent, trying to understand what had just happened. Grace, although devastated, mustered the strength to comfort her children. "We're going to be fine," she promised, holding their hands. But the reality was harsh. Without Martin's salary, the financial difficulties soon worsened, and Grace had to work double time to support the family. The days that followed were difficult for everyone. Amanda, the oldest, took on the responsibility of looking after her younger siblings while Grace worked. Despite their efforts to maintain a normal routine, the children could not ignore their father's absence. Lucas, who was close to Martin, often asked, "Will he come back?" Emma, the youngest, cried every night, while Jackson, the second oldest, began to take on a protective stance, hiding his own emotions to support his brothers. Everyone dealt with pain in a different way, but everyone felt the profound impact of abandonment. Grace did her best to keep the house running, but the bills started piling up. Eventually, they were evicted from the apartment and had to move to a smaller house in a poorer neighborhood. It was a hard blow for the children, who already faced the stigma of being the children of a single mother in a conservative community. But even in the midst of difficulty, Grace never stopped believing in her children. "You have a bright future," she often said, encouraging them to dream big. His determination and faith became the foundation that would sustain the family in the difficult years to come. The children started working early to help around the house. Amanda, just 15 years old, got a job as a waitress at a local diner. Jackson, 13, delivered newspapers before school. Lucas and Emma, although younger, helped by selling lemonade on the corner of the neighborhood. Together, they managed to save some money to supplement Grace's income. "We are a team," Amanda used to say, trying to maintain the spirit of unity between them. Despite the heavy load, there was an unshakable determination in the brothers. They knew they needed each other to overcome the challenges. Over the years, the brothers developed an even stronger bond. They learned to depend on each other, creating a kind of micro-family within the larger family. Jackson, who had a knack for numbers, began helping Amanda better manage the money they earned. Lucas, creative and curious, found ingenious ways to save money and improve the family's life, while Emma, always optimistic, kept everyone motivated with her youthful enthusiasm. Although Martin's absence was a wound that never completely healed, the brothers turned their pain into strength. As the children matured, they began to set ambitious goals for themselves. Amanda dreamed of opening her own restaurant. Jackson wanted to be a businessman. Lucas dreamed of creating inventions that helped people, and Emma, although still young, already showed an interest in art and design. Grace, even though her health was beginning to fail due to the long hours of work, unconditionally supported her children's dreams. "You can achieve anything," she said, reinforcing the idea that, despite their difficult past, their future was in her hands. The family's determination finally began to bear fruit. Amanda got a scholarship to a local university to study business, while Jackson, self-taught, began investing in the stock market with small savings he had saved. Lucas began winning invention competitions at school, attracting the attention of investors, and Emma, now a teenager, sold her paintings at local fairs. Despite the obstacles, the brothers were creating a promising path for themselves, turning adversity into motivation to achieve their dreams. As the years passed, the Jackson brothers continued to grow in their respective fields. Amanda, after graduating, opened a small restaurant in Charlotte called Family Flavors, which quickly gained popularity thanks to its affordable menu and welcoming atmosphere. She credited her success to what she learned from caring for her siblings. "Family will always be the heart of everything," she said, emotionally, as she hung a photo of her mother, Grace, on the restaurant wall as a tribute. Jackson, in turn, became a successful investor with a diversified portfolio that grew every year. His talent for business was innate, but he always remembered that it all started with the struggle to make every penny count. Lucas, who had always been the most creative of the four, managed to launch a technology startup that developed accessible devices for people with disabilities. Success was almost immediate, and he frequently attended conferences and events to promote his idea. Emma, now a renowned artist, had her works displayed in galleries in several cities, but made a point of donating part of the profits to organizations supporting families in need. The four brothers, each in their own field, had found ways to turn their skills into opportunities, building an impressive legacy together. Even with their success, the brothers never forgot their roots. They continued to support Grace, who now lived comfortably in a house purchased by Amanda. "This is the least we can do," Jackson said, always grateful for his mother's strength and sacrifice. Grace, in turn, couldn't contain her pride when she saw how her children had overcome their difficulties. "You are my greatest victory," she said often, with tears in her eyes. Each of the brothers' achievements was celebrated as a family, with dinners and meetings that reinforced the love and unity between them. Despite everything, Martin's absence still hung over their lives like a shadow. They rarely spoke about their father, but the impact of his abandonment was something they all carried. "I used to think that if he saw where we are now, he might regret it," said Emma once while painting in the studio. Lucas, although more reserved on the matter, agreed. "I think he missed his chance to be part of something amazing." Still, none of them held a grudge. The pain Martin had caused had been turned into fuel for their success, and now they were ready to move forward. One day, while walking together through downtown Charlotte, the brothers decided to take a break at a local cafe. They were chatting excitedly about new projects, laughing and sharing ideas, when something unexpected happened. Upon leaving the cafe, Amanda saw a ragged man sitting on the sidewalk, begging. He looked dirty and tired, with a cardboard sign that said, "Hungry. Any help is welcome." Amanda stopped for a moment, looking at the man, and felt a chill. "It can't be," he whispered, calling the brothers to look. The four stood still, in shock, when they recognized the man. It was Martin, the father who had abandoned them so many years ago. He was thin, aged, and clearly haggard, but there was something unmistakable in his eyes. "It's him," confirmed Jackson, feeling a mix of emotions that ranged from shock to sadness. They watched as Martin reached out to other people, receiving looks of contempt and indifference. "What should we do?" Emma asked nervously. Amanda, after a few seconds of reflection, responded firmly, "Let's talk to him." As they approached, Martin looked up, and when he saw their faces, his countenance changed completely. His eyes widened, clearly recognizing his children. "It can't be," he murmured, as emotion took over his face. His brothers, now successful adults, lowered themselves to be on his level. "Okay," Amanda said, her voice calm but full of meaning. Martin began to cry, unable to hold back his tears. At that moment, the past, present, and future met, beginning an outcome that no one could predict. The scene was as unexpected as it was emotional. Martin, sitting on the sidewalk with torn clothes and an aged face, seemed unable to process what was happening. The brothers, in turn, tried to maintain their composure, but were clearly shaken. Amanda, the oldest, took the lead. "It's really you, isn't it?" she asked, her voice firm but full of emotion. Martin, teary-eyed, just nodded. He tried to speak, but the words wouldn't come out. "You have grown up," was all he managed to mutter before lowering his head, overcome with shame. Jackson, who had always been the most protective of the brothers, watched Martin with an expression that was difficult to interpret. There was anger but also compassion. "You left us," he said bluntly. Martin looked up, and tears began to stream down his face. "I know," he replied, his voice trembling. "I have no excuses." Emma, who was the most emotional of the group, couldn't hold back her own tears. Despite everything that had happened, her heart sank when she saw the state her father was in. "Why did you do that?" he asked, almost in a whisper. Martin tried to explain, but his words came with difficulty. He told how, after leaving home, he started working in another city, believing he could build a better life and maybe, someday, return. But things didn't go as he planned. He lost his job, fell into debt, and eventually found himself without a place to live. "I failed," he confessed, looking at his children with a mixture of guilt and regret. "I didn't know how to come back after everything I did." His words, although difficult to hear, touched something deep in each of the brothers. Amanda took a deep breath, trying to remain calm. "We had no choice but to move forward," she said, her voice full of emotion. "You left us alone, but we made it." She pointed to her brothers, who were silently supporting her. "We came together, we faced everything together, and today we are here. But that doesn't change what you did." Martin nodded slowly, accepting each word as a painful truth. He knew there was no way to erase the past, but he seemed relieved to finally be face to face with the children he had abandoned. Lucas, always the most pragmatic of the four, decided to intervene. "How long have you been living on the street?" he asked. Martin hesitated before responding. "Almost 5 years," he said, with his head down. "After I lost my job, everything fell apart. No one else wanted to give me a chance, and I just gave up." His words sounded like an echo of something the brothers had promised themselves they would never do. Give up. They exchanged glances, clearly processing the information in different ways. Emma, who until then had been silent, stepped forward and knelt down beside her father. "You are still our father," she said, her voice breaking. "Even after everything, I can't see you like this." Martin looked up at her in disbelief. "I don't deserve your compassion," he replied, as the tears continued to fall. "I have failed you in every way possible." But Emma just shook her head, gently touching his shoulder. "That doesn't mean you don't deserve a second chance," she said, the words charged with emotion. Jackson, who was normally the most reserved, also approached. "Emma is right," he said, with a firmer tone. "We suffered because of you, but we also learned to be strong. If we can move forward, maybe you can too." Amanda and Lucas agreed silently, although there was still hesitation in their gazes. For them, it was difficult to separate the man who abandoned them from the broken man who stood before them. But there was something stronger than the hurt, the desire to end that chapter differently. After a few minutes of silence, Amanda made the decision. "Get up," she said, extending her hand to Martin. He looked at her, confused. "We will help you, but that depends on whether you want to help yourself too." Martin hesitated before accepting his daughter's hand. He was surprised, almost in shock, by their attitude. As Amanda helped him to his feet, she continued, "That doesn't mean we forgot or that it was easy. But we're here, and now it's your turn to do something with it." Her words marked the beginning of something unexpected for both Martin and his brothers. The 5 of them started walking together down the busy street. The people around them watched them, unaware of the complex story that connected them. For the brothers, this was a symbolic step. They weren't just helping Martin. They were proving to themselves that they were greater than the pain he had caused. For Martin, each step was a mixture of regret and hope. He didn't know if he deserved their forgiveness, but he was willing to do whatever was necessary to regain his dignity and, perhaps, his children's respect. Upon arriving at Amanda's house, the brothers helped Martin get settled in temporarily. He looked uncomfortable, almost embarrassed, entering such a welcoming and well-organized space. "You guys really did it," he said, his voice low, as he observed the details around him. Amanda just replied, "This didn't come easy. We work hard for this." Despite the direct tone, there was a certain gentleness in her words, as if she wanted to show that they had overcome difficulties, but without forgetting the lessons learned. The first thing the brothers did was make sure Martin had a hot shower, clean clothes, and a decent meal. While he showered, the 4 of them gathered in the kitchen to discuss their next steps. "What exactly are we going to do for him?" asked Lucas, always the most practical. Amanda replied, Let's start by making sure he has a safe place. Then we can think about how to help you get back on your feet. Jackson agreed, but added, he needs to want to change. We can't do everything for him. Emma, as always, defended the emotional side. I think he has already started to change. He was crying when he saw us. That means something. When Martin returned to the room with clean clothes and a calmer appearance, the brothers looked at him carefully. He seemed hesitant, almost as if he didn't know what to say. Finally, Amanda broke the silence. You can stay here for now, she said, but we want to see effort on your part. If we're going to help, you need to help yourself too. Martin nodded, clearly grateful for the opportunity but still visibly emotional. I don't know how to thank you, he said, his voice shaking. Just the fact that you don't hate me is more than I expected. Over the next few days, the brothers began working together to create a plan for Martin. Amanda used her contacts in the restaurant industry to get him a temporary position as a dishwasher. It's a start, she said, as she took him to the interview. Martin, although nervous, gratefully accepted the opportunity. Jackson also offered help, creating a basic budget for Martin to start saving. If you follow this, you can start to stabilize, he explained. Martin, for the first time in years, felt like he had direction. As Martin began to adjust to his new routine, the brothers reflected on the impact the reunion was having on their lives. Lucas, in particular, realized that the process of helping his father was changing his own perspective. I always thought I hated him, he confessed one night to Amanda. But now, seeing him like this, I just feel sorry. Amanda agreed, saying that despite the hurt, it was difficult not to recognize the humanity in Martin. He made a mistake, but that doesn't mean he can't do something right now, she said, with a hopeful tone. Emma, who always tried to see the positive side, began creating small moments to strengthen her bond with her father. She invited him to accompany her on walks and even asked for his opinion on some of her paintings. I just want him to know there's still room for him if he wants to be a part of it, she explained to her brothers. Martin seemed touched by these gestures, although he still carried the guilt for what he had done. I don't deserve this, he said to Emma once, but she just smiled and replied, maybe not, but still we are here. The brothers, despite their differences in how they viewed the situation, began to realize that they were creating something bigger than just a second chance for Martin. They were turning their pain into compassion, proving they were stronger together. For Martin, every day was an opportunity to show that he was willing to change. He knew the road would be long, but he was determined to do everything he could to not disappoint his children again. I will never be able to erase the past, he said one night while having dinner with them. But I hope you guys let me build something better from now on. The reconstruction process was not easy, but the determination of both sides meant that small advances began to accumulate. Martin, although still dealing with his own demons, began to gain confidence. And the brothers, in turn, found a kind of healing they never imagined. We are fixing things, said Amanda, on a quiet night. And that's a start. The first few months with Martin back in their lives were a mix of hope and challenges. Despite his brother's efforts to help him get back on his feet, his father struggled to adapt. The job as a dishwasher was exhausting, but Martin did his best to stay disciplined, arriving on time and following his supervisor's instructions. I can't waste this chance, he said often, more to himself than to his children. But the emotional weight of facing the past often left him feeling dejected. He still carried the shame of having abandoned his family, something that made him avoid certain looks and conversations. While Martin faced his internal battles, the brothers struggled to balance their own emotions. Amanda, ever practical, frequently reminded others of the importance of keeping expectations realistic. He's trying, she would say, when Lucas expressed frustrations about the slow pace of Martin's progress. We cannot expect everything to change overnight. Lucas agreed, but still struggled to fully accept his father's presence in their lives. I still wonder if he deserves it all, once confessed, but Amanda just replied, it's not about merit. It's about who we choose to be. Emma, who had always been the most compassionate, continued to find ways to connect with Martin. During a family dinner, she decided to bring up a conversation about childhood memories at the table. Do you remember the story about the bear you made up to put me to sleep? she asked with a soft smile. Martin, taken by surprise, laughed for the first time in days. I remember, he said, the brave bear that faced storms. I think I was trying to teach you something about courage. The conversation brought an unexpected lightness to the evening, showing that despite the distance from the past, there were still small moments that connected Martin to his children. While Emma sought to heal her emotional wounds, Jackson decided to help Martin organize his finances. He realized that his father was saving as much of his salary as possible, but he was also worried about his health. You can't just work and save money, Dad. You need to take care of yourself, Jackson said, as he took Martin to a basic doctor's appointment. The results showed that Martin was experiencing some health problems related to life on the streets, including malnutrition. The diagnosis was a painful reminder of how far he had fallen before being reunited with his children. Despite the obstacles, Martin began to show signs of improvement. He was finally able to rent a small room in a neighborhood close to the restaurant where he worked. Although it was simple, the space represented an important step in their journey to regain independence. When she told her children about the room, there was a moment of shared emotion. I couldn't have done it without you, he said, while holding back tears. The brothers, although satisfied with the progress, reinforced that they would still be there to support him. We're in this together, Amanda said, with an encouraging smile. As the relationship between Martin and his children continued to strengthen, the process of forgiveness also progressed, albeit slowly. Lucas, who still maintained a certain resistance, began to open up more. One night, he found Martin sitting on the couch, reviewing work notes. I used to think you didn't care about us, Lucas said, surprising his father. Martin stopped, his eyes full of guilt. I always cared, he replied. I just didn't know how to handle things. The conversation marked a turning point for both, offering a chance to rebuild a lost relationship. The brothers' collective effort and Martin's dedication began to produce tangible results. Over time, he got a better position at the restaurant, helping to organize the kitchen. The promotion came with a pay raise, allowing him to save more and ultimately buy better clothes and furniture for his rented room. I feel human again, he said emotionally, during one of his children's visits. For the brothers, it was gratifying to see that their father was taking advantage of the opportunity they had given him. Despite the progress, the brothers knew the road to full reconciliation would be long. Amanda often held family meetings to discuss how everyone was coping with the changes. We need to be honest with each other, she said. This isn't easy for anyone, but we're moving in the right direction. The brothers agreed, recognizing that the healing journey was as important as the concrete steps Martin was taking. Each day was a small victory, but together they were learning to turn the pain of the past into something more meaningful. As time passed, Martin began to feel more confident in his new life. He still faced moments of emotional difficulty, but the support of his children gave him the strength to continue. During a family lunch, Amanda decided to share some important news. She was expanding her restaurant to a second location. And I want you, Dad, to be a part of this, she said, surprising Martin. He was silent for a few seconds before asking, like this? Amanda explained that she wanted him to help organize the new restaurant, using the experience he had gained in his current job. For Martin, the invitation was more than a professional opportunity. It was a symbol of trust and acceptance. I don't know if I'm ready for this, he said, hesitantly. But Amanda insisted, saying, you have proven that you are willing to work hard. That's all that matters. The other brothers supported the idea, believing that Martin's involvement in the project could further strengthen the ties between them. It's a chance to start over, really, Emma said, encouraging her father. Despite his nervousness, Martin accepted the challenge, determined not to disappoint his children. Over the next few months, Martin worked side by side with Amanda to plan the opening of the new restaurant. He dedicated himself to learning more about administration and even participated in some meetings with suppliers. For Amanda, it was exciting to see her father so involved and motivated. I never thought we would do this together, she confessed during one of these meetings. Martin smiled, his eyes shining with gratitude. Me either, he replied. But I'm glad I got this chance. As Martin became more involved in the family business, the other brothers also found ways to strengthen it. Jackson helped Martin create a financial plan to ensure he continued to make progress. Lucas, always creative, suggested marketing ideas for the restaurant, while Emma designed a special mural for the new location, representing the family's history. The project brought the five together in a way they never imagined, creating not only a new venture but also a new chapter in their lives. The opening of the restaurant was a great success. During the inauguration, Amanda gave an emotional speech, thanking everyone who had contributed to the project. When he mentioned Martin, there was a brief silence, followed by warm applause. "He is proof that everyone deserves a second chance," Amanda said, as Martin's eyes filled with tears. For him, that moment was more than an achievement. It was validation that he was on the right path to regaining his children's respect and love. Even with success, there were moments of vulnerability. Martin, still dealing with guilt over the past, often sought advice from Amanda, who was the most direct of the children. "Do you think they will ever really forgive me?" he once asked. Amanda, with the sincerity that always characterized her, replied, "Father, forgiveness is not something that happens all at once. It's something we build day after day." Her words touched Martin deeply, motivating him to continue working on himself and his relationships with his children. As the family celebrated the restaurant's success and Martin's small victories, they also began planning for the future. Emma, who was growing closer to her father, suggested a family trip to visit places that were important to them in the past. "It's time to create new memories together," she said, excitedly. Martin was thrilled with the idea, feeling like he was finally finding a place in his children's hearts again. Martin's journey wasn't perfect, but every step he took represented a victory over the man he used to be. For the brothers, helping their father was both an act of compassion and a way of finding healing for their own wounds. And although the past was still present in their lives, the future seemed more promising than ever. "We are rebuilding our family," said Lucas in a conversation with Jackson. "And I think that's the most important thing." Jackson agreed, knowing that despite everything, they were finally on the right path. With the success of the new restaurant and Martin's involvement in the business, the family dynamic began to change significantly. For the first time in years, there was a feeling of stability and hope between them. However, the reconstruction process still presented challenges. The brothers continued to deal with the shadow of the past, but little by little, a relationship of trust began to form. Martin, in turn, felt more comfortable expressing his gratitude and acknowledging the mistakes he had made. "I never thought you guys would give me this chance," he said during a family dinner. "I promise I will continue to deserve this." Amanda, always the leader of the group, watched Martin carefully. She knew that her father was doing his best, but she also understood that her brother's wounds still needed time to heal. During a meeting to discuss the restaurant's next steps, she asked Martin to share his ideas. "We want to hear from you too," she said, encouraging him. Martin, surprised by the trust that was being placed in him, made suggestions that were well received by the brothers. "You are really trying," said Amanda after the meeting, "and we recognize that." Lucas, who had always been more critical of his father, also began to change his stance. During a casual conversation while fixing a table at the restaurant, he admitted, "I never thought you were capable of changing. But I think I was wrong." Martin, touched by his son's words, responded humbly, "I'm still changing. Every day is a step." For Lucas, this honesty was a turning point. He realized that his father was not only trying to win the family back, but also striving to become a better person. As Martin continued to dedicate himself to work and family, he began to bring back little moments from his past with his children. One day, he invited Emma for a walk through the park where they used to go when she was a child. During the walk, she surprised him by bringing an old sketchbook that she had found at home. "You used to encourage me to draw," she said, showing a childhood drawing. Martin, moved, replied, "And you always had talent. I knew I would go far." The exchange was a reminder to both that despite the lost time, there were still bonds that could be strengthened. Jackson, on the other hand, decided to address an issue that had been bothering him for a long time. During a visit to Martin's room, he asked directly, "Have you ever thought about apologizing to Mom?" The question took Martin by surprise, but he didn't avoid answering. "I think about it every day," admitted. She was stronger than me in every way. I owe her a lot. Jackson, pleased with his father's sincerity, suggested that he write a letter to Grace, explaining his feelings and acknowledging his mistakes. It's not for her to forgive you, but for you to show that you've changed, he said. The letter to Grace became an important point in Martin's redemption process. He spent days writing and rewriting, trying to find the right words. When he finally finished, he showed the letter to his children before sending it. I want you to read it, he said, handing over the paper with shaking hands. The content was sincere, full of regret and gratitude. I don't expect forgiveness, wrote Martin, but I want you to know that I recognize the strength you had in raising our children alone. They are amazing because of you. The brothers were moved to read it, feeling that their father was truly committed to making amends for the past. Despite the intense emotions, life went on with moments of joy and celebration. During Emma's birthday, the brothers organized a surprise party at the restaurant. Martin helped with the preparations, showing an enthusiasm they had not seen before. When Emma arrived and saw the decorations, which included drawings of her hanging on the walls, she cried with happiness. "Did you do this for me?" he asked, looking at his father. "We did it together," he replied, smiling. The party was a success and symbolized the progress the family was making in reconnecting. As they reflected on the last few months, Amanda proposed something that surprised everyone. A family trip to a cabin in the mountains. "I think we need some time away from everything to get to know each other better," she said. Although there was initial hesitation, everyone agreed. For Martin, the idea was both exciting and intimidating. "I just want to enjoy every moment with you," he told his children, feeling like he was finally carving out a place in their lives again. The trip to the cabin in the mountains was a milestone in the family's path to reconciliation. Situated in Asheville, North Carolina, the cabin offered a peaceful setting surrounded by forests and majestic mountains. It was the perfect place for moments of introspection and reconnection. As soon as they arrived, the brothers began exploring the surroundings, while Martin helped unload the bags. "It's been a long time since I've been to a place like this," he commented, looking at the horizon. Amanda smiled, seeing in her father a genuine appreciation for the present moment. "Let's enjoy this together," she replied. During the first dinner at the cabin, the conversation quickly turned to childhood memories. Lucas, ever the storyteller, remembered one night when Martin tried to cook and ended up burning dinner. "We had to eat sandwiches because the whole house was filled with smoke," he said, laughing. Martin, embarrassed, laughed along. "I was never good at cooking," admitted. The laughter helped ease any tension that might have existed, creating a relaxed atmosphere that allowed the brothers and father to relax. The next day, they decided to go hiking together. The journey, although challenging, brought moments of unity. Emma, who carried a camera, often stopped to capture the scenery and the moments in between. At a high point on the trail, they stopped to rest and admire the view. "This is amazing," said Jackson, as he watched the mountains in the distance. Martin, sitting next to Amanda, looked at his children and said, "None of this would be possible without you. You gave me another chance." The statement moved everyone, creating a moment of reflective silence. At night, around the fire, Emma suggested a game in which each person would share something they were grateful for. They started with simple things like scenery or food, but soon the answers got deeper. When it was Martin's turn, he said, "I'm grateful that you gave me the chance to be a part of your lives again. I can't change the past, but I can promise that I'm here now." His words deeply touched each of his children, especially Lucas, who finally felt like he could truly begin to forgive. During the trip, Martin took the opportunity to have individual conversations with each child. With Amanda, he expressed his admiration for her strength and leadership. "You have become the heart of this family," he said, proudly. With Jackson, he discussed how much he valued his honesty and ability with numbers. "You have a talent I never had," confessed. Lucas, who was always more creative, heard from his father how inspiring his ingenuity was. And with Emma, Martin talked about how much his empathy had helped heal some of his pain. "You see the best in people even when they don't see it in themselves," he said. On the last day of the trip, they decided to have a picnic in a field near the cabin. As they ate and talked, Amanda brought up something everyone was thinking. "I think we're finally ready to move forward." The brothers agreed, recognizing that while the past couldn't be erased, they were ready to build something new with Martin. "It's a new beginning for all of us," said Lucas, while an emotional Martin nodded silently. When they returned home, everyone felt that something had changed. The trip not only brought them closer together, but also gave them the chance to finally forgive, not instantly, but as part of an ongoing process. For Martin, it was validation that his efforts were paying off. For the brothers, it was proof that they were capable of overcoming the pain of the past and creating something more meaningful in the present. "We are really together now," said Emma, as she looked out the car window. "And that's all that matters." After returning from the trip to the mountains, the family's life took a new direction, with Martin showing clear signs of transformation. He became more involved in his children's routine and in managing Amanda's business. Furthermore, his dedication to his work continued to bear fruit. At the restaurant, he gained the trust of his colleagues and began to be seen as an essential member of the team. When Amanda promoted Martin to inventory supervisor, he was visibly moved. "I never imagined I would have a second chance, much less something like this," he said with teary eyes. Amanda just smiled and replied, "You are proving that you deserve it." Day after day, despite the advances, Martin still faced emotional challenges. He often reviewed the past, trying to understand how he could have done things differently. One peaceful night, while talking to Lucas, he confessed, "I still wake up sometimes thinking about the years I lost with you. It's like a weight that never goes away." Lucas, who had matured a lot in his relationship with his father, responded with a compassionate tone, "What matters is what you do now, not what happened before. You are here, and that is enough." Lucas' words came as a relief to Martin, who finally began to accept that forgiveness was a mutual process. As trust grew between Martin and his children, he began to become more involved in family celebrations. During Christmas that year, he helped decorate the house and even surprised his children with personalized gifts. To Emma, he gave a set of high-quality brushes, saying, "I want you to keep creating beautiful things." For Lucas, it was a rare book about inventions, showing that he paid attention to his son's interests. Amanda and Jackson also received carefully chosen gifts, which moved them deeply. "You are doing things we never imagined," Jackson said, as he hugged his father. However, it wasn't just happy moments that defined this new phase. Martin also began to deal with past mistakes more directly. After writing the letter to Grace, he received an unexpected response. In a few words, she expressed her gratitude that he had recognized his faults, but made it clear that he had moved on from what happened. "My life has moved on, and I hope yours does too," she wrote. Although the words were harsh, Martin received them maturely, understanding that Grace's forgiveness was not something he had the right to demand. "She deserves her peace," he said to Amanda, with a mix of sadness and acceptance. Martin's relationship with his children also began to extend beyond the family nucleus. He became close to some of Amanda's friends, Lucas and Jackson, helping them with small tasks or giving advice about work and perseverance. This new interaction brought him a sense of community that had been missing for so long in his life. During a charity event organized by Lucas, Martin gave a heartfelt speech, talking about his journey of redemption. "It's never too late to change," he told the audience. "But changing requires effort and, above all, support from the people around you." The speech was received with emotional applause. Over time, Martin also began to invest in small personal projects. He took up an old hobby of woodworking, something he used to do before abandoning his family. Emma was the first to notice her father's enthusiasm for the activity. "You look so happy doing this," she said, as she watched him work at a wooden table. Martin explained that woodworking gave him a sense of purpose and allowed him to express his gratitude for the new life he had. He even started creating pieces for Amanda's restaurant, like custom shelves and tables for customers. Martin's transformation was also marked by a special moment of gratitude. At a family dinner, he decided to express everything he felt. "You gave me more than I ever deserved," he said, his voice full of emotion. "And I just want you to know that every day I spend with you is a gift." His children, equally moved, responded by reaffirming how proud they were of him. "You have proven that it is never too late to change," Amanda said. "And that's something we all learned from you." For Martin, hearing this was confirmation that he was on the right path. Even with all his achievements, Martin never stopped recognizing the role of his children in his transformation. He often remembered how they had believed in him, even when he himself didn't. This gratitude motivated him to continue striving, both at work and in family relationships. For Martin, every day was an opportunity to show his children that they had made the right decision to help him. "I will never be able to return everything you did for me," he once said, "but I promise I'll keep trying." Over the years, the Collins family has built something that none of them could have imagined. A strong and harmonious relationship based on resilience and love. Martin, who had previously been seen as a symbol of abandonment, had now become an example of transformation. Her presence in Amanda's business not only helped expand the restaurant, but also became an inspiration to the employees. "If he can change his life, so can I," said one of the young restaurant workers. For Amanda, seeing her father's impact on other people was the biggest proof that they had made the right decision in helping him. The brothers' lives also flourished. Lucas launched a new line of accessibility technology devices, while Emma had her first solo art exhibition in New York. Jackson, in turn, became a renowned investor helping small businesses grow. Each of the children's achievements was celebrated as a family, with Martin always there to show his unconditional support. "I see a little of you in everything I do," he once said. For the children, these words were a reminder that the family bond, although weakened in the past, was now unbreakable. The family decided to create an annual tradition of traveling together, a way to strengthen bonds and create new memories. During one of these trips, while camping under the stars, Emma suggested that they each share something they were grateful for. When it was Martin's turn, he said, "I'm grateful that you guys took me back, for giving me a new life, and, above all, for teaching me what it means to be a family." The words moved everyone, creating a moment of deep connection between them. Although the past was still present in their memories, the Collins family chose to use it as a source of strength. Amanda, in particular, began organizing talks in schools and communities, sharing her family's story to inspire others. "No one is beyond redemption," she said during the presentations. Martin, who accompanied her whenever he could, also shared his side of the story, highlighting the importance of taking responsibility for one's mistakes. "It wasn't easy," he said, "but every step was worth it because it brought me back to them." One of the family's biggest accomplishments came when they decided to create a foundation to support people experiencing homelessness and help families reconnect. They named the organization Second Chances, in honor of Martin's own path. The foundation offered shelter, job assistance, and training programs to reintegrate people into society. During the opening ceremony, Martin was invited to give the keynote address. "I am living proof that second chances can change lives," he said, moving everyone present. "And I want other people to have the same opportunity." The foundation's impact was immense, helping hundreds of people rebuild their lives. For the brothers, seeing the family legacy expand in such a significant way was a source of pride. "We are giving back to the world what we received," said Lucas, during a fundraising event. Martin, who was next to him, added, "And it never would have happened without you." Public recognition was a validation of the family's collective effort to transform the past into something meaningful. For Martin's 70th birthday, his children hosted a special celebration at Amanda's original restaurant. The event brought together friends, family, and people who had been touched by the Collins story. During the party, Martin was presented with a mural made by Emma, representing the most important moments of his journey of transformation. "You taught us that it's never too late to change," she said, excited. Martin, holding back tears, replied, "And you taught me that love conquers all." Over the years, the Collins family story has continued to inspire people around the world. They have become a symbol of resilience, forgiveness, and the power of second chances. For Martin, each day with his children was a reminder of how much he had achieved, and not in material terms, but in terms of love and connection. "I thought I lost everything," he said once, while walking with Amanda. But you gave me back more than I could ever dream of. The family, united, knew that what they built together was a legacy that would live forever.